Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Cleave podcast. And this is part two of one of our most listened to conversations featuring our friend Rachel Wood on the topic of Christ like boundaries. And if you have not listened to part one yet, we would strongly encourage you to push pause now and go start there first. In that episode, we talked about what boundaries are, why boundaries are not the opposite of love, and how people pleasing, resentment, control, attachment, and fear can keep us trapped in unhealthy relationship patterns. But today we are moving into the part of the conversation that I think many people are really wrestling with. What happens when you are trying to live in truth, but the other person does not want truth? What happens when you are trying to forgive, but the harmful behavior keeps continuing? What happens when someone uses spiritual language, family loyalty, or your desire to be Christ-like to pressure you back into a relationship that still is not safe? Rachel brings such a clear and helpful lens to this conversation because she helps name the difference between love and control, forgiveness and reconciliation, compassion and enabling, and boundaries and punishment. And I think this distinction is so important. Forgiveness is a commandment, but reconciliation requires repentance, safety, honesty, and changed behavior. Those are not the same thing. And for a lot of people, especially people of faith, that distinction can be life-changing. So, as you listen, we hope you will do so prayerfully, not from a place of anger or punishment, but from a place of truth, wisdom, and spiritual clarity. So without further ado, I give you part two of our conversation with Rachel Wood on Christ-like boundaries. Let's jump into it.
But I think I do want to speak really to, I think it's important because we don't talk about, this isn't like your sweet Sunday school answer, that I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is what happens if we are in relationships with people who do not want that? Because part of boundaries is respecting other people. So control says, I want you to do this for me. Boundaries say, hey, you can do whatever you want. So let me give you an example. Okay. Let's say that this is common in our church. So I'm going to bring this up.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that my husband he's not, but addicted to porn. Okay. Very common. Okay. He doesn't want to be. It's not like he's like, I can't wait to destroy my family. Right. But he is. Okay. And especially with this rising generation, we're going to have a huge influx of a lot of kids that don't know what to do with this problem. Right.
And parents need to be empowered to know,
Yes. Right. So this is a good example, okay? If I'm the wife of that person, that man, I can either shame him, tell him he's horrible, and, we can try to go to therapy and whatever. That's not going to be a positive reinforcement and change behavior, right? Or if I just ignore it and I continue to just tiptoe around it and hope that it goes away, also not going to work, right? It just gets worse and things get worse. So we do have to face reality, and that's boundaries. So instead of saying, hey, stop looking at porn, I don't like it, I don't feel loved, why don't you love me? It actually has nothing to do with me as the wife. It's 100% about them and attachment and back to their childhood and all of that stuff that they can work on. But I do make it about me, let's say, and I say, I don't feel love. It does kill love. So there is that. And so, you can try to force them to stop, which is yelling at the fruit, or you can imply boundaries. Hey, I'm really sad about this, and I'm not going to share my body with someone who is actively participating in this. So I'm not going to share a bed with you when you do this behavior, and I'm really sad and it's hard and I'm going to sleep somewhere else. And, when you're willing to get help and I can see the fruits of that, then we can talk about building trust again together and working together through this problem. And so what happens is that person then goes, I need to be a saint. I need to just fake it till I make it. Willpower through this. I got this. I'm not going to look at it. We all know from all of us trying to quit eating sugar how hard it is to willpower. At some point, you just binge all of it, right? So can we have some compassion there, right? So I think that, we need to understand that this isn't something you can just like decide and change, right?
Yeah.
So But you also can't be irresponsible about it and pull the wool over everybody's eyes. So you start going to therapy, and let's say you are compliant, which is different than change. Compliancy says, I'm going to try and make it so that everyone's perceptions of me are that I'm changed. So I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to check all the boxes. I'm going to willpower through it. And then hopefully everyone gets back to normal. And then I can just kind of slip back into what I was doing before and nobody will notice. So that's compliance. And again, these aren't bad people. We all do this in some form. It's just, again, quitting sugar. Like, how many people can actually do that? It's difficult. And so we have to look at much more than compliancy. True change has a pattern to it. It doesn't go back. I mean, over time, right? It's consistent. So if I keep coming in the middle of the night and smacking you, and you say, knock it off, please stop, and you have a boundary, and I don't stop doing that, then that's not change, right? We can't lie to ourselves about that, because the person will say, well, you're just not forgiving. And that is very manipulative, because they're saying, I am uncomfortable, you're calling me out on it, and I want you to hurry and quickly forgive me. And there is some truth to that. We are supposed to forgive everybody, and that's for our own good. But we don't have to reconcile with everybody. Yeah. In fact, it's not smart to. If I'm in the sandbox with John and Ashley and I'm throwing sand in their face and they're like, stop, and I don't stop, they would be wise to get out of the sandbox and not come play with me. And they can say they forgive me, but they're not going to come play with me again. And so that's a boundary, because it's saying, I forgive you and no.
Yeah. So let me just talk about this. But what if as a people pleaser, because I know I'm supposed to forgive, what if I stay in the sandbox and you keep throwing sand at me, and while you're throwing the sand at me, or like, you've done it, I know you're going to do it again, and I'm just like, Rachel, I forgive you. Yep, I forgive you. And I just stay right there with you. It's like, am I really forgiving when I know you're going to continue to hurt me again?
Yes, I love this.
Is that forgiveness? Or is that a counterfeit of Satan's?
This is where I get so excited. I'm seriously a nerd, okay?
We do too.
I'm such a nerd.
That's why we love each other. Rachel's been telling me all
so
I can't wait to nerd out on this game. Like, me too. Let's be nerds together.
Fascinating to me, like human behavior, right?
Yep.
All of us. This isn't, again, them against us. This is what we do as humans. Doesn't matter who you are.
And I said this at the beginning. Yeah. It's, once you study it, it's predictable.
You can't unsee it.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, I look at my interactions, even with John, which we have a very healthy marriage now. And I'm like, oh, nope, I can't do that. I'm trying to control him, or I'm being a victim. Or, like, it just starts.
Which says a lot about your humility, but not everybody's in that space, right?
Yeah.
Because of shame.
Time to get here.
Yeah. And shame, Brene Brown says, if shame is driving the car, then blame is driving shotgun. You cannot have blame without shame, and you cannot have shame without blame. So they are twins. Yeah. And so I think it takes humility.
We need to put that on
to be able to look inward.
Instagram posts.
Oh,
we will.
So good.
But, and so the thing is that's shame, right? And that's a whole other topic for another day. But what Ashley's saying is, what if my actions don't align with my word? Because what happens is, if someone's is used to, and they've maybe made a whole lifetime out of manipulating people and controlling, and they're successful. People love them. They're super flattering. They walk into a room and everybody loves them, and they can just pull the wool over anybody's eyes. And then behind closed doors, they're awful. Like, it's this Jekyll and Hyde, like two-faced, what in the world's going on? Or they do it in kindness, and everybody has to tiptoe, and they're the dictator of the family or the friendship or whatever it is. And so their actions don't align with their words, and it's confusing. If you're confused, you're being manipulated, period.
I loved when you taught me that.
And so
it is so true.
It is so true. You've got to stop and think.
Confused, you are being manipulated.
Because again, that's not a fruit of the Spirit.
No.
The Spirit is not going to confuse you. It will give you clarity.
Well, and it always says plain, plain, simple, it's straightforward. Yeah. That's why the gate is narrow.
Yeah.
It's just, it just is what it is. It's there.
Yes.
It's not this loud
confusion. Yeah. And so I love this scripture in Psalms 55, 19 through 21. It says, so this is how you can know if someone is, we talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? They look like a wolf, or I'm sorry, they look like a sheep, and you go and pick them up and you're petting them and they're so sweet and kind. And all of a sudden the zipper comes off and they bite you and you're like, or I give the example of, like, you've got this warm hug that you've always wanted from this person that you love, and you're just hugging him and holding him. And all of a sudden they stab you in the back and you're dripping blood, and you're like, oh, and you're like, what did you just do? We were hugging. I thought this was connection. And they're like, and they won't let you look at it. And you're like, I swear you just stabbed. It is so confusing because you're like,
I appreciate the hug I'm giving.
what?
Yes.
I forget how loving I am. And you don't see anything, like the gaslighting, right? So which one is it? Is it the hug or is it the stab? You can only know people by their fruits, by their behavior. Do not look at their words. Don't listen to their words because they get good at it. It's very, very flattering and easy for people to learn psychologically what you want to hear.
Yes.
And then say it, but do the literal opposite. That's where the gaslighting and the confusion comes. So Psalms 55:19-21 says, they have no changes. Okay. So if there's no changes, this is who we're talking about. And keep in mind, you've forgiven these people 70 times 7, it seems like, and they keep saying, well, you need to forgive me. Okay. They're now definitely manipulating and abusing the system here, right?
Yeah.
So you have no change. They have no changes. Therefore, they fear not God. So they're not respecting God and the atonement and what it means. He hath put forth his hands against such to be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. Okay, so we don't have a marriage if we're not keeping our covenants right now. Yeah. So that's not a temple marriage. If we are married in the temple, let's say, and we have these covenants and someone's not keeping them, you don't have a covenant marriage right now. We got to get back on that path, right? The words of his mouth, this is the best part. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So it's like, which one is it? Your words are so smooth. And it's
They're
actually
so
what
good.
I've been wanting to hear my whole life.
Yeah.
You're so good at that. You tell me exactly what I want to hear. And yet there's war in your heart. And you know, you're softer than, your words are softer than oil, but then they're drawn swords. Like, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
You go with the behavior, always, not the words.
Always
Talk
behavior.
is cheap.
Yeah.
I want to share this quote this is from Jeffrey R. Holland. And this was so huge for me. It's, you know, as members of the church, you want to do the right thing. Like, we want to look to doctrine. We want to look to the scriptures. We want to look to prophets and apostles. They do speak on this and often, but I love this one. Jeffrey R. Holland said, Jesus did not say you are not allowed to feel pain or sorrow from the shattering experiences you have had at the hand of another. Nor did he say, in order to forgive fully, you have to re-enter a toxic relationship or return to an abusive, destructive circumstance. So if you're looking for permission, you know, to live the gospel differently than the way you thought it's always been, there is a lot of really, really good, and it's strong and it's bold, but sometimes we need that to get ourselves out of the sandbox, so to speak, because if we just keep going back into that, nothing changes.
Yes.
It's not good for either person, because if we let them continue to throw sand, continue to stab you in the back, and continue to inflict harm and pain, they're not growing and progressing. And that is not kindness or love either. So when you use that agency to do that, that's where boundaries actually blesses both people. And even if it doesn't, and they still use their agency and they find another victim and they continue to go and perpetuate that abuse, you though are on the right path. And you now have your freedom, you know, to be able to live your life fully.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, just with, you know, Elder Holland's quote and where I was going with the sandbox thing,
I love that.
which your answer was amazing too. But we really can't fully forgive somebody while they are still harming us.
Yeah.
And that creates a culture of victims. This is, Lily Anderson talks a lot about this and she's brilliant. But it's like, Christ doesn't want a culture of victims. We cannot be his strong people if we're constantly victims. And we actually technically can't fully forgive a person while we are still allowing them to hurt us. And not only that, so
because we're living a lie, right? We have to get into reality.
yeah, so here's the scripture I wanted to read in this one. This is Helaman 14:30. And now remember, my brother, that whosoever perisheth unto himself, and whosoever doeth iniquity do it unto himself. For behold, ye are free, ye are permitted to act for yourselves. So again, why would Christ send us down to act as free agents for ourselves, but then we're going to come down and allow others to dictate our lives? No.
Sounds
We're
like
acting.
the adversary's plan to me, right?
Yeah,
But
we're
yet we do
acting
it.
in what we committed we'd do to Christ is come act for ourselves. No, I've just handed all of my power over to my spouse or my parents or my siblings or my needy friend or, whatever. Anyway, but also whoever doeth iniquity doeth it unto himself. So if I allow you to throw sand in my face all the time and I just stay there and I'm like, oh, Rachel, I still love you and I forgive you, but I allow you to throw it, you're actually only doing this unto yourself. So you're going to have to pay for it eventually.
Yeah.
Your own bad behavior. So is that love on my part to allow you to continue to abuse me? No. My love will say, Rachel, I love you enough to say I will not allow this, even if you're angry with me and reject me.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, you can go.
Well, that is exactly what happens, right? If you all of a sudden start having boundaries, watch out. People are not going to be happy with you. If they've been having this dynamic with you, there is a literal war and you will feel it. There will be smear campaigns. There will be lies. I mean, because they feel exposed. It is not a pretty thing. And you have to be willing to let people's perceptions of you go and just be okay with that and be aligned with God and feel good about that. But it's exactly right. We are active participants. We're not the victims. We want to be. And maybe at first we thought we were. But really, none of us are victims. We either play the game. It's kind of like if I tap Ashley on the shoulder, I'm like, hey, do you want to play this game called control instead of love? Where I basically try to control you and you try to control me. And we have this drama back and forth. And if you do it wrong, I'll let you know. And this is literally a game. And she's like, yeah, I do. That's what happened. Or if I tap her and she's like, no, I don't do that. I don't do the control thing. So that's a boundary. I will be livid if I am a controlling person, typically, and I'm not willing to look at myself. I have no ability to self-reflect. I will be very mad because Ashley is exposing something in me that I refuse to look at. And so that's why we get defensive. So we've got to be humble. I do love in Matthew, it talks about knowing your yes and no. It says, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. So either know your yeses or your nos. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. So if you don't know who you are and you don't know what your yeses and nos are, then you're gonna be succumb to the laws of manipulation from others. They will step right in. And really, I love what John said. This is everyone's dealing with this because we're not actually dealing with each other. We're dealing directly with Satan. He is using us, if we're willing, to give him our power as puppets to destroy people and to manipulate people. And that's why we need to repent daily because we become instrument in his hands, just like we can be an instrument in God's hand to cause destruction. So we need to remind ourselves we're not at war with our neighbor or our friend or our spouse. We are at war with the adversary and we need to have strategy. These are the war chapters. We need to understand because it's the exact same tactics with a different head. If you meet someone, you start talking about boundaries and all these things and they've had these experiences, they will have the exact same stories with a different person.
In fact, I used to call Rachel or Marco Polo her and I would tell her a frustrating thing and she would literally laugh. She would get back on and she would just do that. She goes, Ashley, I'm so sorry. It's just once you see it, it's just always the same. Satan's not creative. He employs the same tactics over and over and over. And she's just like, this is exactly what you would expect. And let me tell you why. And she helped me see these things. And I'm like, you're right. He's not creative. Oh my goodness. It's the same thing with a different.
Well, and it infuriates me a little bit too, because I'm like, the answers are all right there in the scriptures too. The teachings are all there. And that's why we're trying our best to fuse this or open up this dialogue between scripture and doctrine and the study of human behavior and psychology, because they really are one and the same.
Truth is truth.
Truth is truth. And it's so important to go down that path. And it's why we love gravitating to people like Rachel, because it's like, okay, we're all speaking the same language here. Now let's look at it in this higher, holier way, this deeper understanding. Let's not just look at it as Laman and Lemuel wanted to kill Nephi. I don't have anyone that wants to murder me, so this story doesn't apply to me. Let's go on to the next. No, dive a little deeper and understand the family dynamics, the human behavior that existed there, because that same thing that existed with that family all of these years ago is existing in the homes of Latter-day Saints today. We just have to apply it to a modern lens, but it's all the same human behavior.
I love that, because I've said this before, actually over the pulpit, I don't know, but I'm so glad the Book of Mormon starts out with a dysfunctional family.
Yes.
Because if it
so does the Bible.
And so does the Bible. I mean, all of them
a
are
family in crisis.
They're both families in crisis.
In crisis, because that's like reality.
It is.
Right? And so if we have this ideal family, and maybe we have this ideal family. I don't know anybody that does, but if you are,
so
like, you probably have skeletons in the closet.
There's a few that look pretty good, but not that many.
Yeah. And so, we all have these dysfunctions in our family, and it is our responsibility. Just like we had a technology boom, I think right now we're having a psychology boom where people are wanting truth, and they want it to not be secular, spiritual. We want to merge the two. That's why I chose this institute, the Townsend Institute. It's John Townsend, who is not Matt Townsend. It's John Townsend. And he wrote the book Boundaries. And we have a free giveaway that we're going to give to one of you guys, because it's this book right here.
You guys, this is so exciting. When she told me that she bought a Boundaries book for one of our listeners,
this is for you.
Like, oh, they're going to be, this book changed my life.
Well, first of all, if you have even listened to this as long as it has been, like, all of you, I will buy one of these for you, because you are awesome. And so this book we're going to be giving away, and we'll talk about maybe how or why later. But he wrote this book, and he is very Christian. And in fact, every other verse is a scripture that ties into boundaries. And so if you are struggling with this, he has boundaries with teens, boundary in marriage, boundary with dating, boundary with kids. There's a lot of different books, but the main boundary one is really great because it teaches you what boundaries are. And he
quotes Jesus in there in scriptures I have never read.
I mean,
I had no idea that Christ said this.
No.
Like over and over and over.
It's
I'm like,
amazing.
I got stuck on the same talk tracks of turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor. And like it ended there. And I'm like, he said that? He said that?
Yeah. And if you look at Christ's behavior, he didn't put up with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You look at how he treated the woman who with the adulterous woman. He offered both justice and mercy all at once. He offered mercy to the woman, and he offered justice to the men who were saying, look at what she's done. Because he's so perfect in his boundaries, and he knows who he is, and he knows us. He knows our heart. But if you are going to have boundaries, you are going to have to confront, period. And that means in your marriage too. You can't be scared of conflict. This scripture, Matthew 18:15 through 20, confronting others is good for relationship, and discerning their actions when confronted matters. And it says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, so if he's humble or she's humble, thou hast gained thy brother. Awesome. But a lot of times that's not how it goes. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more. So maybe a therapist or somebody, right? A bishop, that in the mouth of those 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. Well, what if that doesn't work, right? Then, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. And you think of our typical politician. They will never take responsibility to save their life for anything. They are so good at spinning it, and suddenly you're at fault. That is the category that you put people in that are not willing to look at themselves. So we are in charge of our safety.
I don't even think that you have to go as far as politicians to find people.
I mean, we all can be like this, but the difference is in the fruit, right? Is somebody who's willing to actually not just say it, but actually look at themselves and actually go through the painful process of repentance and change. Or just speak it and say it and not. And so I wanted to give a tool to everyone, right, that made it this far in this podcast that we can use. So you're in charge of your safety, okay? So think of an onion, okay, with 3 layers. I know there's more than that, but think of an onion with 3 layers. On the inside, you have your most intimate relationships, okay? Typically, that's like your spouse and your kids and maybe your family, right? Typically, that's what we think. Okay. On the middle is like people that you see every once in a while that are friends, like Ash and I, and actually, Ashley's in my inner core. But, like people that you've met, from high school and from your past and stuff like that, right? Then the outer core is people that you run into at the grocery store and it's very superficial when you talk to them, right? If they ask you, how's it going? You're not going to be like, well, actually, I'm not doing well today. Like it's not appropriate to talk to the outer layer about your dirty laundry, right? So what happens is if you have boundary issues, then you put everyone in your middle core. Everyone deserves to be in there and nobody's on the outer. So you get to tell everyone, you overshare, you tell everyone everything about everything, and there's no boundaries, right? Until they hurt you, and then you cannot believe what they did to you.
Right.
And so what I'm offering is, if you're someone who just wants to figure out, how do I start with boundaries? What do I do? I'm going to give you a couple tools. First of all, draw this on a piece of paper. Inner ring, middle ring, outer ring, okay? Only allow people who are showing up safe in your life in the middle ring. That means if they have a title of husband and they're not acting safe, don't put them in there. If they have a title of mom and dad and they're not acting safe meaning they have fruit that is not conducive to what we've been talking about. Their words don't align with their actions. When you tell them things, they hurt you with those things, and
Can't
maybe
even just respect your wishes for your own life.
they don't honor your boundaries.
Like, we think that we are going to do Thanksgiving in our house this year.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to that reaction. If it's how dare you, we've always done this, you need to be here. It's like, but yeah, you've already, well, even if you're not married, but you've grown into adulthood, it's like we each have the ability to make these decisions for ourselves. So pay attention to what people are allowing you to do in your own life or what they expect, like, you to do for them. Like, no, I need you to come to Thanksgiving for me. And if you don't, I'll tell you how bad you are.
When we need to have some compassion for that, because that goes back to attachment, right? If I didn't grow out of that phase from childhood, then I become a mom who looks at my kids as an object for me that serves me. So it's like you're their extremity. So let's say I'm a mom that is, we call it unsafe in psychology, but we call it insecure, right? Or having secure issues, not stable, right? I will use my kids as my extremities. So one kid's my arm, one's my leg. And if they decide to not be part of my body, that's really scary because I won't let them have their own autonomy. So now add years onto that of play acting because there's no growth there, right? Because everyone's always given into their wishes and they've always gotten what they've wanted. You've always played as the arm. Well, all of a sudden now you're not the arm for Christmas. Like, do you realize you just cut off my arm?
Yeah.
How could you do that to me? This is my body and you cut off my arm. So boundaries, if you have secure attachment and you can be an adult about it, say, I'm not your arm anymore. You get to have your own arm and I get to have my own arm. And when we get together, that's great. And when we're not together, that's fine. So we do this to our children. We don't let them grow up and we don't because of our own problem.
Yeah.
And
one of my favorite examples of this, and I think about it all the time, especially since I've been putting my own work into this, but just simple, right? The Lord teaches us through very, very simple things, but I will never forget when Sister Hinckley said, I love Gordon because he gives me wings to fly. Mm-hmm. And that is the very opposite of control, right? Mm-hmm. And so my own moments where it's like, I want John to do the thing I want him to do. I think of Sister Hinckley. Am I giving John wings to fly right now? There's sometimes where, it's like, this means a lot to me. I hope he'll show up. And he usually does when it's that. But like, am I giving the people I love wings to fly? Mm-hmm. And I've had to reframe how I see my kids. Mm-hmm. And when they go out, if my oldest child, who's 16 now, she's a sophomore, and she goes to college away somewhere, let's say she goes to BYUI or, and she calls home and she's like, Mom, I'm actually not going to come home from Thanksgiving. I have this awesome group of friends. We think it would be so fun to do it here and do Friendsgiving. Like, I want so badly to be the type of mom that's like, Lily, I am so excited for you that you are excited about this and can do this new experience. And I will miss you so much. But I love that you're growing and having new experiences and the freedom to live your own life.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, yeah, that should be the goal.
Yeah.
Like we should reconfigure it. I think, again, in LDS culture, it's often this whole family all together for every holiday, every Sunday dinner, every whatever, right? Like, and it's almost this badge of honor sometimes for parents to, and we had everybody there and everybody, whatever
We're
the
just
case may be.
perfect.
And
Everything's
that
amazing.
is how, yeah, that's how from the outside
Yeah.
looking in that you would perceivably think that everything is
Right.
perfect. But I think for us as parents, yeah, it's almost the opposite now. Like our goal is, yes, while they are under our care,
Yeah.
we are going to help them be the most responsible
Yeah.
adults that are secure, that know
Mhm.
who they are, what they want, and that they feel empowered to make their own decisions. And yeah, they might make decisions like that we go, oh, darn it, I wish that they
Yeah.
would come to
Yeah.
That's a
Thanksgiving.
bummer. I'm going to miss them.
But I think from what I've seen in other healthy family dynamics, what actually ends up happening is that the kids do want
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be there. So they're not coming out of resentment because
Yes.
mom and dad are
Yes.
controlling and hanging it over their head.
Yes.
You will have kids that come because they want to come.
Yes.
And that
'Cause
is
there's
where that
freedom.
joy of family
Yeah.
is when everybody has that freedom, that autonomy, that independence.
Mhm.
They have agency intact.
Yes.
They're not being honor thy father and thy mother.
Oh,
And we've
shame.
always done this for the
Yeah.
last 30 years. And it's like, no, like
Well, and
those days are gone.
they might not want to come for Thanksgiving, but they'll want to come back whenever.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's that they'll choose a month later or whatever. But they
Whatever.
will want to keep those. It's like, yeah, they'll just want to keep the relationship intact.
It is interesting to me that we can get this far in our life, or let's say someone's in their 70s or something and literally have no differentiation
I know.
and not be able to allow their kids to differentiate.
It's crazy.
It is the most unloving thing we can possibly do to our kids
Yeah.
because we're holding them hostage.
Yep.
We're not allowing them to spread their wings and fly. And I know I enable my kids. Like I'm the first to admit, it's bad sometimes because I feel bad for them or they're little or something. But I think there's that fine line, right? Of knowing this is you, this is me. We are separate.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help you. And
Yes.
you are in charge of your body. You are in charge of your family. You are in charge. And then we get together and it's not this shame-filled, I'm pleasing, I have to go. There's none of that. If you have that dynamic, then you've been held back and you've been pressing pause on your life and play acting for the last how many years. It's time to press play and go, which requires sacrifice. There's pain involved. And it's the most loving thing you can do for yourself and the other person in the relationship, even though they will hate you for it. Eventually, and I've had people come back to me in my life and say, thank you. At the time, I hated your guts for it. And now I see why. And I'm so grateful. I would have never grown had you didn't do what you did. And so be okay with being hated. I think that's part of being a good parent is to be like, I know this is
Well, and
frustrating.
the thing that is also important to learn is when people have those feelings towards you, it has nothing to do with you.
Never.
And it always has everything to do with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their anger, their hatred, their whatever is more, and the way
Yeah.
they choose to express it
Yeah.
just shows their unhealthiness.
Yeah. Or just their need to buffer to feel
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
because we forget that love comes from Christ.
Mhm.
So it's like, if we forget that love comes from Christ, then we're getting love from our families that are showing up where we want them to,
Yes.
you know. And I was having a conversation with John's little sister about this just yesterday. And she actually did tell me thank you. She was like, you know, they're just in this phase where she's seeing the value of the differentiation. And she just said, I just want to thank you. I really love the trajectory of the family because of the boundaries and the knowledge that we get to do what works for our families first, as far as husband, wife, children. And then, you know, we can extend ourselves to each other when we all choose and it works. And she just like feels so much healthier. And there's not the pressure of like, oh no, family, you
Right.
know? And it's interesting because she didn't always feel this way. She didn't always respond well to us saying we're going to do our own thing. But now, you know, she can see the wisdom in it and it's now blessing her life.
Mhm.
And I feel like, and she's always been a really, really good person, but we have to be taught these things.
Yeah.
We have to be modeled them
Yeah.
And we kind of have to go through that pain and separation of what we think should be to reality and kind of that higher way.
Yeah. And I think going back to the onion, just to finish that tool, is the inner core are people that are safe, that are showing up in ways where their words align with their actions. They honor your boundaries. They take responsibility, and there isn't drama. You're not the villain victim going on. Those are your safe people. And if you don't have any, you need at least two. Okay. So if not, call me, call Ash. We'll hook you up with some girlfriends or even guy friends that you can have in that middle core part you need. And just because they have the title doesn't mean that they are entitled to be in there. And they will tell you that. If they're unsafe, they're going to say, well, I'm your mom. I should be there. You should tell me everything. That's the Mother Gothel, like, don't leave the tower. And if you do, I'm going to make your life miserable. But mother knows best, and smile and sing about it. And it's like, no, you literally hurt me and force me to stay in this tower and stay small. No.
Yeah.
So I think we need to differentiate who goes in that core. And the middle core, these aren't necessarily people that aren't safe. They're just not close to us. So we're not going to share the deepest parts of our life with them because it's not appropriate. Yeah. Because we aren't close to them and we don't know whether they are safe or not.
But you know why people do that? Because you talked about Brene Brown and there's power in vulnerability, you know, and we all want connection. You talked about that earlier too. And so I think sometimes in our desire for that connection, we do open and we kind of spew that. And I think, again, maybe journal this out a little bit and try to identify what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. Because yes, you can be vulnerable with those people that are in that inner circle. Yeah. But if you're doing it with those outer circles, there can be major ramifications that come. And I think I just got hung up on that with Brene Brown. I'm like, I believe what you're saying. Yep. But then I would get burned over and over and over again because I'm like, but I'm being vulnerable and I'm showing this and that. And it's like, they will use that against you. Yes. They will harm you. Yes. And so just be careful with that.
And that's why I say it's a 3-stage onion, right? You're in charge of your safety. I love that you bring up vulnerability and Brene Brown. She calls it oversharing. Yeah. So if you typically, like a codependent, right? Someone who is the giver and the hyper responsible and that kind of people pleaser person is an oversharer, and they don't have boundaries and they share with everyone, and then they wonder why they get hurt, right? This is like me. So
me too.
It's easy. This is like an hey meeting for codependents.
Totally. And they say, I read somewhere, it was like, we overshare because we're dying to be heard and acknowledged. And I'm like, as the youngest child, I just kind of put myself in this like, well, I'm not as significant as you. Like, you know, I have this memory of my dad saying, where's everyone want to go to dinner? And I remember thinking, I was probably like 8, and everyone's spouting off their things. And I remember thinking, it won't matter what I say. Just go wherever they want. Like, I wasn't mad about it, but it's like, I just knew that I wasn't going to be heard. And so you grow up and it's that attachment, right? Of like, I wasn't heard. And now it's like, somebody hear me. So let me vomit all my stuff on you.
Yeah. But I'm the youngest of 7 too. And I remember laying in the back on the way to Lake Powell on top of coolers. That was my chair because we had 9 people and there were only 8 seats. So I laid on the coolers and I had this much space between the ceiling and my nose. And I laid there and couldn't hear a word of what was going on. And it didn't matter what my opinion was. I couldn't speak it because you're going to sit there or lay there whether you want to or not. So not having a voice. And of course, I never knew where I wanted to eat because everyone made those decisions for me. And of course, when we went voting, I was always the last one to be able to do anything. So I won't do anything. Like, it was just this, like, you're the last. And so I'm not ripping on my family at all, but like, I so associate with that. So now that you have a voice, we call it vulnerability, but vulnerability is wisdom. We want to make sure that when we're being vulnerable, that we are doing it with safe people, because if not, 100%, if they're not in that safe, if they're not showing up safe or secure in their attachment in their life, stable, they will use it against us later, and we will wonder why we got hurt, and the pattern continues. Yeah. And so we have to know where to place people. We are in charge of our safety. So that inner core is safe people. Then, and it's not that they're bad, right? These aren't bad people. We just have to discern. This is a superpower. Then we've got that middle, which is like, I maybe don't know you enough. And so we just kind of keep it a little more superficial. And then we've got the outer where it's like very superficial. Maybe these are people who have wronged us and we've moved them. And so we just talk about the weather and things that are safe. We avoid politics and religion, whatever, right? So we need to know where people belong in order to have safety and to have healthy relationships.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say this. We have gone on really
Yes, way too long.
But I just wanted to give an example really quick. I have had a couple people in my life tell me that I am an unsafe person for them. And, you know, it's because I wasn't validating the things that they wanted me to. And and I was challenging them a little bit because I couldn't validate what they were wanting me to validate. I didn't. So I was being honest and they didn't react well to that. So I became unsafe. And, you know, in those moments, I thought, well, I would never want you to feel unsafe in our friendship. And so I accept that. Like, I love you, but of course you would need to boundary yourself from me if I'm an unsafe person. Like, I just understood that. And so when I eventually read, like, healthy people will respect your boundaries. It doesn't matter if I'm the bad guy in your story. I am, because of the way it all shakes out, your beliefs, my beliefs, whatever. And so I just have to respect that. I didn't go off and, I can't believe you would call me unsafe. It's like, no, in this situation, I can see how you feel that. And it makes me sad, but I'll honor that. Another thing, I had somebody complaining just hardcore about John. I don't know if I use this example, but, you know, and I said to that person, you know, and they were like, but we come and we get together and I just don't even like all these things. And I said to that person, you know what, John would never want to affect you in that way or hurt you. You should probably hold a boundary. Like, what if you just said, you know, I'm not going to be where John is right now because he affects me emotionally like that. I said, John would never want to hurt you. And that person looked at me like, oh, I would never do that. But it was almost like they were playing the game of like, look at benevolent, vulnerable, amazing me. I put up with this horrible person, you know? Yeah. And when I suggested that maybe they should have a boundary from us or even my own husband, because I know he would never want to make you feel that way. It was like, I just thought, oh, no, that's not what I want, because I can't then play the victim.
Yeah.
And so
people who want to live in victimville will not get out. And that's how you know they're not safe. They're not available. You've got to remind yourself, they are not available. Yeah. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love them. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't love them. We can see them where they are, see things as they really are, and just know what to do from there. For us, they're not available.
Yeah. And I feel like when you really align with Christ and unify with him, these things start to become second nature. And it probably feels overwhelming at first, but once you get going, it really starts. The wisdom and the true spirit helps you see the truth of these things, and you can grow into them pretty fast.
Yeah, I agree. I will say, just to close, 2 things that you can do if you're starting, like, where do I start to have boundaries? 2 phrases, okay? Because people who have never had boundaries will think you're very rude for having them. How dare you, right? So to kind of soften the blow, there's 2 phrases I tell people to use, which is, I'm not willing, ... I'm not willing to ... And the second one is, that doesn't work for me. And those 2 phrases, or no, right? You might feel like you have to explain yourself. You don't. No one's entitled to your why. As long as you love your reasons why, then you can hold those. You don't need to explain yourself. In fact, I highly recommend you don't, because then you'll go into overshare. Yeah. And then that person will use that information to spin your head so fast. So it's messy at first.
But give yourself grace, because as you're learning and because you need to get to the place of safety so you can heal. So it might be a little messy, but yeah.
And sometimes you learn through doing. I have over-explained my whole life, and it's taken doing it and kind of seeing the negative consequences of being like, I'm not going to explain. And I'm just now starting to merge out of, maybe I don't need to share that information that much about my why. But again, I'm 41.
Love your reasons why. Then you won't resent yourself or be mad at yourself.
Yeah. Well, Rach, thanks
Oh my
so
gosh.
much. This
Too
has
much.
been so fun.
Not too much. We'll have to have you on again and
Oh
keep
my
the
gosh.
conversation
For
going.
sure. Well, we need to
This
talk
is
about shame
ongoing.
next time. When you're
I
like, that's
know.
a whole nother one. I was
Oh
like,
my
I'm
gosh.
here for it. Let's do
I
it.
love Brene Brown. If you want to know where to start, other than this book is great for boundaries, but if you're like, just overall, where am I in my life? I highly recommend Brene Brown, Gifts of Imperfection. Read that one first and then read Daring Greatly.
Mhm.
Those two will change your life, and that's where you start for sure.
Yeah.
She's
And
the
you
best.
referenced to me that book, Changes That Heal. And
Yeah.
You've talked about that. And that is also
Yeah.
remarkable. So there's a lot of
Dr.
resources.
Cloud is best friends with Dr. Townsend, and so they both,
Yeah.
write books together. They've written several. And
Right.
Changes That Heal is if you want one that's religious with psychology, this one and Changes That Heal are your go-to.
So good.
Mhm.
And you can always message John and I too.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have the answers for everything, but I've been able to give people a lot of resources and
Well, we have
and
great people that we
have
can
great-
turn
I
to
don't
get
I don't
answers
know.
as
That's
well.
why I'm in school and getting my butt kicked. I got to learn this stuff.
But yeah, it can be daunting. It can seem almost counterculture. It can be a little bit of a weird faith paradigm shift on this subject. But rest assured, as you dive in and as you study the gospel even more wholly and more fully, and we're able to fuse it with other wisdom that has been given through great professionals that help us understand who we are as people, I mean, there's no greater blessing. And yeah, it's been some of the biggest adversity of our lives, but that's also where it's been some of our greatest joys. Like, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
So
There's no growth without adversity. So we just embrace it.
And we do it for ourselves, but we do it for our posterity. We do it for
Yes.
our kids. They deserve to have better tools, and it's available,
Yeah.
and it's our responsibility.
100%. And I just believe too, Ash and I have talked about this, but I think this phase of this restoration of the gospel, and as we prepare for the second coming, et cetera, I just believe wholeheartedly we're now preparing our hearts, right? There was other things that we had to get in place. We needed to establish a church. We needed to cross the
The
plains.
structure.
But I believe the responsibility of our generation is to get our hearts prepared. And that has us looking at everything a little bit differently so that we understand how to apply the gospel in a more meaningful way.
And President Nelson has told us that the Spirit of Jesus Christ is descending upon his covenant people. So that tells me that when you are wanting to learn these things and learn the truths, your mind will rapidly understand and comprehend them. The changes can be fast.
I think Zion is a call that's happening right now that isn't necessarily a place, but it is our hearts. And I think those who are wanting to be a Zion people are having major trials and change of heart right now, and are so hungry for this information. It's just we're not pushing it away. We want it. And I think that's the separation, right, of the wheat and the tares. And if you're in a family unit or a situation where you want that, but maybe someone else doesn't, then you need to have the support of how to get that and what you can do.
So we're here for you as we're all trying to figure out truth together. So we're glad that you've been able to listen this long. We're going to get you details about the giveaway for the book. We'll put all these resources onto our social media channels. And this will definitely not be the last time we address boundaries, because we're deeply passionate about it. All of us are. And it's changed our lives. And we hope that this little conversation helped you.
Yes. And we hope you'll come back, Rach.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Hey, I love it. This is so fun. Like I said, this is like fun for me. Nerding out is like my new fun.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Have a great day, everyone. We appreciate you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to part 2 of this conversation with Rachel Wood on boundaries. Thank you, Rachel. We love you. We know this is not an easy topic. For many of us, boundaries are not just theoretical. They touch our marriages, our families, our faith, our loyalty, our guilt, our grief, and sometimes the deepest places where we have been trying to survive for a really long time. And if this conversation brought something up for you, we hope you'll move slowly and prayerfully, because boundaries are not about becoming hard-hearted. They're not about punishing people. They're not about cutting people off just because relationships are uncomfortable. At their best, boundaries are about truth. They are about stewardship. They are about learning to love without self-abandonment. They are about forgiving without pretending. They are about making room for real repentance, real safety, and real change. And sometimes the most Christ-like thing you can do is forgive. Sometimes the most Christ-like thing you can do is tell the truth. And sometimes the most Christ-like thing you can do is stop participating in a pattern that is harming your soul, your marriage, your children, or your relationship with God. If this conversation helped you, we'd love for you to share it with someone who may need the language for what they are experiencing. And if this topic feels very personal right now, we want to personally invite you to join us for our May Healing webinar series. This series is for those who are navigating painful family dynamics, boundaries, estrangement, guilt, grief, spiritual pressure, or the difficult aftermath of choosing truth in relationships that have not been safe or healthy. We'll be walking through these topics with more teaching, language, reflection, and practical next steps so you don't have to process it all alone. You can learn more and register at leavethencleave.com. And if you're looking for a deeper resource to walk with you through these questions, our book, Leave Then Cleave, was written just for you. You can find the book, the webinar series, and our other resources all at leavethencleave.com. Thank you so much for being here with us. And here's your reminder to leave what is unhealthy and to cleave to what is true. I hope you have a great day.